Hello again, everyone. We are going to continue our introduction to using the string functions to manipulate text strings in Excel using Visual Basic. And to do that, we have this little table of names. And in the first column, column A, we have a series of names that are written as last name, comma, first name. And some of them are all uppercase, some are all lowercase. We just mixed it up to make it interesting. And we are going to write some code so that when you click on this button, Extract Names, it's going to find the first name and pull that out and write that in column B, and it's going to find the last name and write that in column C. And furthermore, by the time we're done, we are going to have it so that it modifies the names to be title case. So Joe would be capital J, lowercase OE, for example. And we're going to do all this using the the Visual Basic string functions. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a loop that starts at row 5 and keeps looping until it finds an empty cell in column 1. So we're going to start right here, and it's going to keep going until it runs out of names to process. So before we even start messing with the string functions, let's get that part working. So we'll go into design mode and jump over here, and let's declare ourselves a looping variable, dim myRow as integer. This will keep track of what row we are on. And then we can say myRow equals 5 because we want to start at row 5. And then we could do this a number of different ways. An easy way is to use a do until loop. So we'll say do until cells myRow comma 1 equals an empty string. And we'll go down here and we'll say myRow equals myRow plus 1 and loop. So basically what we've done is we've written a loop that starts at row 5, and it keeps looping until it finds an empty cell in the row corresponding to myRow and in column 1. And at the bottom of each time through the loop, it increments the row counter to point to the next row. So it just adds 1 to the myRow variable. So as I mentioned this before, but I like to, before I start worrying about the contents of the loop, I like to write the beginning and the end of the loop, especially this line here that increments the row counter. If you forget that line, if you get busy doing something else, if you forget to go down and write that, it's very easy to write an infinite loop that you never increment the row counter and it just never stops looping. So we shouldn't have that problem. So now we can go back and start focusing on part 2. Write some code inside the loop that extracts the last name from the full name for the current row and writes the result to column 3. Trim off any leading or trailing spaces. So we're not going to do the first name yet. We're going to do the last name because that actually is a little easier. And so if you look at this, how do we determine what's the last name? Well, it's everything over to the comma. So everything from position 1 over to the location of the comma -1 should allow us to, or that part of the string should be the last name. Now furthermore, if we go back to the list of functions, there actually are a number of ways we could do this. One of the ways is we could use the left function. It extracts a specified number of characters from the left side of the string. So for example, if you pass in hello world and you tell it you want the 5 leftmost characters, you get hello. If you want the 5 rightmost characters, you get world, and so forth. Or excuse me, that's the right function. So there's a left and a right function. There's also a mid function where you can extract a string from anywhere inside the string. So we're going to use the left function, and we got to figure out how many characters to tell it to pull in or to grab for us. And so let's go back to our code. And what we're going to need before we go any farther, I'm going to declare a variable dim comma LOC as integer, and what this is this is going to be the location of the comma inside that string. And I'm also going to do this. We're going to say we're going to do a little more house cleaning. We need another variable called, I'm going to call it full name as string. Okay. And before I forget, when we go to do this, we're going to be filling in this part of the table. Before we write some new information, it doesn't hurt to wipe out whatever we had there from the last time around. So let's say range B5 colon C, and let's just do some big number dot clear contents. So this will wipe out everything from B5 all the way down to, I went down to C100 just in case we decide to make this table larger. And it wipes out the contents. Remember, the dot clear method wipes out the contents and the formatting. We don't want to do that. All we want to get rid of is the contents. And now we're ready to jump into here. Now let's get back to what we were looking at a minute ago. We want to find the comma, the location of the comma. Now, how do we do that? If you go look through this list of functions, there is a function called instr, in string stands for, where you give it a starting location and a string, and then another string, I call it the substring, and it will return an integer representing the position of the second string inside the first. So in this case, we're telling it to find the letter W, the position of the letter W, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the seventh character over, so it returns a value of 7. Now, if you give it a letter or string that is not contained in it, it will return a 0 value. So we should be able to use that to solve our problem here. Our problem being, where is the comma? So I'm going to say comma location equals instr, start at character number 1, and look in the full name string and look for the comma. Now I just realized I forgot another line of code here. We need to do this. We need to say full name equals cells myrow comma 1. So there we go. So before we get too carried away, we're going to copy the full name into this variable, and then we are going to find the comma location. Now let's just test it before we go any farther. So at this point, I just went up and hit the run button. Let me stop that and let's do it the other way. I'm going to go here. So our first one is Joe Blow. So if you click on that, in fact, let me stop it up here. So I'm going to hit F8. So we're into the loop, and the full name is Joe Blow. And now we're going to say, okay, where's the comma? And the comma is located at position 5. So go back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's correct. So now we know where the comma is located. We are ready to, let me stop the debugger here. We are ready to go to the next step, which is to extract the last name. So I'm going to declare another variable up here called dim last name as string, and then we're going to say last name equals left, and we're going to pass in the full name, and we're going to tell it we want we're going to use this, whatever the value of comma LOC, comma location is, that's how many characters we want to pull off. Actually, we need to do comma location -1 because we don't want to include the comma, and that should get us what we want. So let's try that, and we click on the button, and nothing happens. So see if we're paused here. We have to write the answer, so we're going to say cells myrow, comma 3 equals last name. Alright, so that should do it. I forgot to, we need to write the, once we've, on each row, once we've found the last name, we need to put it right over here. So let's try that again, save our changes, and there we go. Worked like a charm, and we got all our names. So now, part 3, write some code inside the loop that extracts the first name from the full name for the current row and writes the results to column 3. So let's, now that we've done that, we're going to reuse some of this information. So now we need to figure out how to grab the first name. So if we look at this, the first name is on the right hand side. Now you could say, well, why don't we just use the write function? We could, but we need more than the comma location, because we need to know how many characters on the right side of the string we need to pull off. And so if the comma is at position number 12, that doesn't really help us. We need to know what the full length of the string is. If we took the length minus the comma location, then that would in fact tell us how many characters to grab on the right side of the string. And we do have a length function, so we could use the len function to find the length of the string, subtract the position of the comma from that, maybe add a character or two, and then use do a little bit of manipulation and then use the write function to grab that. And while that works just fine, there's actually an easier way to do it, the mid function. The mid function will extract everything from any position inside a string all the way to the right, or for a given number of characters. So if we know where the comma location is, let's go back to Excel here. If we know where the comma is located and we just go over 2 characters, then everything from there over should be what we need. So then we don't need to use, we don't care how long the string is. All we really need is a comma location, and we're good to go. So let's do that. So let's say last name equals mid, and we'll start with the full name, and we're going to start at the comma location +1, because we need to we need to go one beyond the comma location because there's a space there. And then we're going to say cells myrow, comma 2 equals, oh, you know what? I mistyped this. This should be first name, not last name. There we go. And we'll call that first name, and we should be good to go. And I need to go up here and dimension this first name as string. I thought I'd done that, but I had not. Okay, here we go. You're watching real life programming, mistakes and all. So let's try that. So again, we're using the mid function where you give it a string and then a location, and it extracts everything from that string to the right. You can also give it a number of characters, so you can tell it I only want 1 string or 1 character or 5 characters or whatever. We just want everything all the way to the end of the string. So we're good to go there. So let's save our changes, and there we go. Although it looks to me like we have an extra character space there, and that makes sense because comma location +1 would put us on the space. We want to go comma location +2, I think. So let's change that to +2, and then oh, there we go. Now we don't have that in the space there. And we are in good shape. So now we are done, except we have one last thing to do. It says modify your code such that the names are changed to title case, where the first character of each name is capitalized and the remaining characters are lowercase. So instead of just all caps or all lowercase, we want to use, for example, for Wanda, capital W, lowercase a n d a. And that sounds complicated. It's actually pretty easy. All we have to do is we are going to modify last name. So we're going to say last name equals. So to convert something to title case, you take the leftmost single character. So I'm going to say left last name, and the length is 1. So basically that's the leftmost single character, and then I'm going to pass that to the uCase function. Okay. So I'm calling a function within a function. We're passing it to the left function to get the leftmost single character. We're uppercasing that. Then we're going to append onto that. Now we're going to do a function within a function again. We're going to say lcase. We're going to lowercase, and we're going to do the mid function again. And we're going to say last name, comma. We're going to start at character 2 and go all the way to the end. Alright, so what we've done is we've said uppercase the leftmost single character, and then lowercase everything from there, from character 2 to the end, and then combine them together using the ampersand. And we're going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, and copy, paste, paste, paste. So we're going to do the same thing down here with the first name, and let's give that a shot. Boom, look at that. Alright, so again, for each one of these we pulled off the leftmost single character, uppercased it, and then we pulled off from the same string, we pulled off everything from the second character to the right, lowercased it, put it back together, and look at that, we have a beautifully formatted set of strings. String functions are extremely handy. There are tons of occasions when working with spreadsheets where you need to do string manipulation, and this is an excellent little exercise here. And only, I don't know, 20-25 lines of code, we made some pretty cool modifications to those strings, and there you go. That is the end of our exercise.